The Holy Land, of 14,000 square miles, is small in size, but it has played a great role in human history. It is the land where lie the ruins of the world's most ancient civilizations. It is the land of prophets and Christ, who with their immortal teachings and divine laws directed the course of humanity towards justice, peace, and brotherly love by producing the three monotheistic faiths. From the grounds of this land spread the flames which established the rule of moral and religious beliefs between people blinded by error and idolatry.
Jerusalem, standing amid the poor Judean hills, has been chosen by God to be the bulwark of monotheism. It is the sacred city of half of the human race, being the religious capital of the three monotheistic faiths. For the Jews, it is the symbol of their past glories and the hope of their future. For the Christians, it is the city of Jesus' last ministry, the city which saw Jesus die on the cross and rise from the dead. For the Muslims, it is the city where the prophet Muhammad is believed to have ascended into heaven. Jerusalem, source of faiths and spiritual laws, and the world's most sacred and loved city, has been also a city of terror, war, and blood. Although its name means peace, the sword has been devouring its children throughout its long history. There have been more wars fought at its gates than in any other city in the world. This is the holiest shrine of the Jewish world. It is revered as the last relic of the last temple. The western wall is a portion of the wall that Herod built around the second temple in 20 BC. Titus, in the year 70 AD, spared this part of the wall with its huge blocks to show the future generations the greatness of the Roman soldiers who had been able to destroy the rest of the building. During the Roman period, Jews were not allowed to come to Jerusalem. However, during the Byzantine period, they were allowed to come once a year, on the anniversary of the destruction of the temple, to lament the dispersion of their people and to weep over the ruins of the Holy Temple, which is why this section of the wall became known as the Wailing Wall.
The custom of praying at the wall continued for centuries. From 1948 to 1967, Jews were not allowed to visit the wall since it was in the Jordanian sector of the city. After the Six-Day War, the Wailing Wall became a place for national rejoicing as well as a place of worship. A large esplanade was cleared to accommodate thousands of worshippers.
The Muslim belief that the Prophet Muhammad ascended into heaven from the historic Rock of Moriah gave birth to one of the most important and most beautiful mosques of the Islamic world.
Known also as the Mosque of Omar, it was built at the end of the 7th century by the Umayyad Caliph Abdul Malik bin Marwan. He built a splendid mosque, spending on its construction all the taxes of his province Egypt for 7 years. The mosque, which ranks in sanctity after that of the Kaaba and the tomb of the Prophet in Medina, is the oldest and the most exquisite Muslim shrine in the world. The exterior is a rectangular octagon. The dome, made of special aluminium bronze alloy, shines like gold under the brilliant sun of Jerusalem.
The Kidron Valley has been crossed by Jesus many times, either going to the temple through the Golden Gate or ascending to the Mount of Olives, where he used to spend the night mainly at Gethsemane or at Bethany in the house of his friend Lazarus. He surely crossed this valley on the memorable evening of Holy Thursday, when, leaving the cenacle, he went with his disciples to Gethsemane, and again after he was betrayed and led to the house of the high priest Caiaphas. According to the local tradition, the Kidron Valley will be the site of the last divine judgment. This belief has made the Kidron Valley a huge necropolis in which Jews, Muslims and Christians alike choose to be buried. Nazareth, enshrined amidst hills, is one of the main Christian cities. It was the place chosen by God for the annunciation of the birth of his Son. Here the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Here Jesus grew to manhood. Here he spent his hidden 30 years playing in the streets and on the hills with nothing to distinguish him from the other children.
This large, magnificent church, built in 1960 to 1968 over the Grotto of the Annunciation, is one of the largest Christian sanctuaries in the Middle East. It was designed by the Italian architect Signor Muzio, who achieved a great architectural success. He built 2 interconnected churches, one above the other, preserving in full the remains of ancient churches. The 2 churches are 80 feet high and 130 feet long. The western and southern facades are decorated with statues illustrating the Incarnation and the Annunciation.
The Dead Sea is 47 miles long by 10 miles wide. It has a surface area of 360 square miles, and its water attains a maximum depth of 1,278 feet. It lies 1,290 feet below sea level, which is the lowest spot on the Earth's surface. It is called the Dead Sea because of the absence of any animal life in its water, which is the most salt-saturated water in the world, containing about 27% solids. The reason why the Dead Sea is a huge concentration of chemicals is because it has no outlet. Every day, the Jordan and other streams pour out nearly 7 million tons of water mixed with sulfurous and nitrous matter. This water, unable to escape and subject to the tremendous heat of the Jordan Valley, evaporates, leaving behind a large deposit of solid and other chemicals in the sea.
About 2.5 miles from the western shore of the Dead Sea, in the wilderness of Judea, stands the rock fortress of Masada. Masada has become a shrine for the Jews, since it has been the site of one of the most dramatic episodes of Jewish history. It is the symbol of courage and heroism, the symbol of choice of death over slavery. In 40 BC, Herod the Great built a huge, magnificent fortress at the top of Masada. After the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, a band of Jewish patriots, led by Eliezer ben Yair, marched on Masada and captured it from a Roman garrison. Joined later by a few surviving patriots who evaded capture in Jerusalem, they determined to continue the fight for freedom and made Masada a base for guerrilla strikes against the Romans. In 72 AD, Silva, a general of Titus, marched on that great Rock of Masada, and after a long besiege of many months and hard fighting, a break was made in the wall. The leader, Ben Yair, knowing that it was the beginning of the end, gathered his men and delivered one of the most dramatic speeches in history, urging them to die by their own hands rather than fall into the hands of their enemies. They then chose 10 men by lot to slay all the rest. The Romans entered the fortress, saw the bodies, and heard the story from the 2 women who, with 5 small children, had hidden themselves. Far from exulting in the triumph of joy that might have been expected from enemies, they united to admire the steady virtue and dignity of mind with which the Jews had been inspired, and wondered at the contempt of death by which such numbers had been bound in one solemn compact. For the Romans, it was a hollow victory. The Rock of Masada, standing majestically in the desert, is still a glorious witness to the courage and dignity of those who preferred to die free rather than to live in slavery. It is one of the most interesting and emotional sights to be seen in Israel.